Okay, Amanda, it is all yours. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Melanie, and everybody at the Next Group. I so appreciate it. And what an honor to speak on your 5th anniversary. That's exciting. Well, I'm so glad everybody is here. I'm going to switch the slide right here. All right. So, what are we going to learn this evening? First of all, we're going to talk about how you use LinkedIn. Why is anybody even interested in LinkedIn? What is the point, and why is there such an influx and an increase of people interested in creating profiles? So we're going to look at that. We're going to talk about the different reasons why people use LinkedIn, and I will give you some insights on the ever-changing LinkedIn algorithm, and I'll teach you how to target your feed, which is very important when you're leveraging LinkedIn. And then I'll give you a couple optimization tips. Hopefully we get through all of this, and then I'll take some questions. I do encourage you to ask questions as we go. This is casual. And I really appreciate you all being here. It's so exciting. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can ping Melanie and she will chime in. Sound good? All right. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is I want to get some information from you. So just a quick poll, and Melanie is going to conduct this poll. And I would love to know how often you use LinkedIn. And then does this just oh, it's all on there at once. What are why do you use LinkedIn? And then the other question. So go ahead and answer all of them. How do you score yourself? And then the last one is just a give me. Hopefully you all get A pluses. Oh, great. Lots of good answers coming in.
And once we've got a good response, I'll go ahead
Yeah,
and end the poll and then display the results.
great. It's interesting. I like looking at all these results.
And Amanda, I'll be curious your answer once we've got everybody else's answer, your response to number one.
Oh yeah, I was just like realizing I can't answer these.
It looks like we've got about 30 folks that have already responded. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll if that's all right with you.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's check it out. What are the answers? Do you want me to share, or
Sure.
you'll
Yeah,
share?
I'm sharing right now. Do you want me to read through it?
Oh, okay. Can everybody see the results on
Yep,
their
everybody should be
deck?
able to see it.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome. So these are excellent. This is very interesting. So how often you're using it? I mean, it's kind of runs the gamut. And I'm just going to go ahead and answer recommendations as we go on, and you can think about this as you go. One time per day is perfect. You only need about 20 minutes a day to make LinkedIn work for you. So if you're scrolling, you're going to hear a theme here. If you're scrolling without intention, if you have teenagers, you probably see them scrolling on Instagram a lot. That's not what to do on LinkedIn. So the multiple times a day, the 2 to 3 times a week, you probably could get away with. So I would say the 1 time per day or 2 to 3 times per week are the best. And then that's interesting. It's applying for jobs and networking. A plus, everybody who answered that. Networking is really the key to LinkedIn and professional branding and thought leadership, and no one's using it for learning. That's great. Continuing. Oh my goodness. So I'm glad you're all here so we can get those letter grades up. Congratulations for joining us, and thank you. And then yay, everybody's excited for LinkedIn. So that's the perfect segue to what we're going to continue with. All right, so moving along. And Melanie, you'll just chime in. I see some questions in the box, so you'll just chime in with those questions. All right, awesome. Okay, so like I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation is why LinkedIn? Well, first of all, it's because of the user base, right? Like as of, and this all is very recent information. So you can see as of April 2024, for just 2 months ago, it surpassed 1 billion members from 200 countries and regions, and the most LinkedIn are here in the US. So that goes back to when I was talking about the networking and the professional branding. That's important because of the people who are on there. Active users, I know you all can read, so you can see 134.5 users every day. Oops, of more than 48% monthly, and 16.2 of all and daily. Oops. Okay. Engagement. So you're going to learn a lot about what I mean by engagement on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn intentionally. If you're logging onto LinkedIn and you're just scrolling, nothing is really going to happen. It's important that you look at LinkedIn and you engage with the content. And I'll talk in a minute about what I mean by engagement. So the average user is 7 minutes, 38 seconds. So again, that goes back to, you don't need to just scroll to scroll. You want to use LinkedIn very intentionally, and you want to engage. And I'll come back to what I mean by engage shortly. B2B platform. So a lot of people, if you're in marketing, a lot of people are using LinkedIn to reach out to the decision makers and use it to drive leads. And some of you may be interested in doing that too. Okay, so that's why we're on LinkedIn. There's so many people on it. People are logging in daily. It's a way to get in front of the decision makers. Other reasons, of course, are for the marketing. So now that we know why we are interested in LinkedIn, let's talk about the primary reasons that people use LinkedIn. So number one, it's for professional branding and thought leadership. Number two, if you're an independent freelancer, this is in no particular order, by the way. If you are a freelancer like me, freelance designer, freelance writer, maybe you're in film, whatever you're doing, freelance coaching, you can use it for client acquisition. If you're in a hiring, perhaps you are the decision maker, you are the hiring person, you would use it for candidate acquisition. Networking. We know statistically that 80% of jobs are found through your network. So if 80% of the time people find jobs through their network, thank goodness for the next group for creating a network like that, then you should be spending 80% of your job search time networking. And so LinkedIn is the perfect place to network. And I will show you what I mean by that shortly. And then job search is one of them. But again, if we know 80% of the time people find their jobs through networking, 20% of the time people find their jobs applying online, then we want to divide that job search time. These are averages, of course. And then B2B marketing, like we saw earlier, and LinkedIn Learning. Nobody on this call has used it for LinkedIn Learning. Honestly, I've never used it for LinkedIn Learning either. I typically focus on the first 5. And whatever your focus is, whether you're honing your professional brand, whether you're a freelancer or whether you're in a hiring situation or you're networking or you're looking for a job, I'm going to the 6 and 7 because we aren't focusing on that. But I want everybody to really think about, well, what is my purpose? Am I using it for a job search? Am I using it to find more clients? Maybe I'm using it for all of the above, but I want you to think about your intention for using LinkedIn. And I want you to always engage with intention on LinkedIn. So that's what we're going to focus on. I see some people writing down notes. So as you're really thinking about why you came today, that's what I want you to focus on throughout the call. It could be any number of these. They obviously can overlap, and you can use more than one. All right. So now that you have that in your head, what you're using it for, whether it's professional branding, thought leadership, client acquisition, candidate acquisition, networking, or job search, you have your focus in mind. And now we are going to come to the LinkedIn algorithm. And I wanted to move right into the algorithm because it's important to use LinkedIn with intention, like I mentioned. And then it's also important to understand the LinkedIn algorithm before you can use it with intention. So the goal when you are logging onto LinkedIn, however often that is, really you need about 20 minutes a day, around 5 times a week. If it's a little less than that, great. If it's a little more than that, that's great too. Do not all of a sudden after this call, after this webinar, log in every day and start posting and start going like using it like a bull in a china shop. Not to be trite, but don't do that. You want to really take your time with intention and think about, okay, this is the algorithm. This is what my intention is. This is what I want to be known for, and really start following along and watching what happens. Then maybe in 2 weeks, you comment, or maybe in 3 weeks, you do your first post, whatever it is, be intentional and be consistent and be true to your purpose of why you are using it. So the goal of that using LinkedIn is to get more views on your profile. And so to drive it there's a lot of pieces and they actually change all the time. So if you have a premium membership, I always say this, that I'm not in the business of spending anybody's money. You do not need to pay for LinkedIn. I do not pay for LinkedIn. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, but the majority of the time I'm not paying because I figured out the algorithm and I know how to drive people to my page without paying. LinkedIn would kill me if they heard me say that. So shh, don't tell them. All right. So a totally completed profile, more than 500 connections. Here's the consistent engagement and interaction piece, but don't start doing that tomorrow. Wait until you figure out your goals and your purpose. Keywords. And if you have been on LinkedIn for a long time, you may notice that people just have specializes in and like a list of 50 things. That's because the keywords used to be the primary driver, but now the primary drivers are engagement and interaction more so than the keywords. So no longer in your about section do you need to say, I specialize and list 50 of your top skills. But the keywords, it's still important. It's just not as important. The keywords where you want them to be are in the first 3 lines of your about section and in your headline. That's what's right under your picture. The skills and endorsements piece, you want to make sure that you have at least 50. They recently upped it to 100. If you want to put 100 skills, go right ahead. The rumor has it that they are going to be pulling that in its entirety. I don't know when or if that would be true. And if that is true, why did they add 100? But the first 3 to 10 are the most important and they feed into your algorithm. You need 1 endorsement per skill for it to count in your algorithm. There's also a section on the bottom of recommendations. When you have 10 plus, it triggers the algorithm. And for some reason, I wrote keywords twice, but this one as 1 word. Maybe I was trying to test you for a typo. Anybody who found that, A plus. And dwell time. So I'm going to tell you what dwell time is in a minute. Are there any questions right now, Melanie, that you'd like to share? I can see some popped up in the chat.
Yeah, there are a couple. People asking if we're going to share slides. Of course, yes, we'll share the report.
Yes.
Marta, thanks for the question, Marta. She asked, I was told that more senior people should not list their skills, that it looks thirsty/junior. Your reaction to that?
I think if you asked 10 people their opinion about the skills, whether they're junior or senior people, you would get 25 different opinions. So I think that you should always choose what feels, this is the key, one of the keywords, and my whole approach is authentic. If it feels good to you to include it and you're like, oh, I really like that. And now you can actually pin top skills at the top of your profile. If you like that aesthetic and it feels good, go for it.
That's great. That's great. There was one other question that came in, more of an etiquette question, from Allison. Thanks, Allison. She said, should you get someone's permission before tagging them or their organization in a post?
Well, that is a really good question. So one of the ways to drive engagement is to tag somebody. I think I think that there has to be a caveat on that. You know, whenever possible on LinkedIn, you want to eliminate any bias. So if you're, and I don't suspect that this is what you're trying to do if you were to tag somebody, but if that article had some bias in it and you tag somebody, yes, ask for permission. If it's a pretty benign article and you're tagging them or you're tagging them in a post to say thank you, or it's an insightful or the person's quoted in it, absolutely. You know, just do like a gut check of how would I feel if I got tagged for something like this? How would my best friend, how would my sister feel? And then use that gut check to evaluate. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. That's great. And then one more, Amanda, then I'll let you keep
Yeah.
going. Ash sent a question. Thanks, Ash. Said, why, when I send a request to connect with someone on LinkedIn, I get a message, quote, something went wrong, and I can only follow, not connect with them?
That is a great question, Ash. There are so many settings that the person could set up that you can't connect with them. You can only follow them. There is a slight nuance of following and connecting. It's not anything dramatic, so it doesn't really matter too much if you're following or connecting. My hunch is that on the back end they turned it off so that nobody else can connect. There's also, I think it's a 30,000 person limit of connections. Maybe you're trying to connect with an influencer. Those would be my best guess at why. Also, LinkedIn is super, super glitchy and it can just glitch out on you. And maybe you come back an hour later and then you could try it again.
Good. Great to know. Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll keep going. Okay, so every year, I don't know if you can see on the bottom here is where I got this information. This gentleman and his team, Richard, he has a very long Dutch name. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, so I don't want to ruin it. Is an algorithm report. And the top things, again, this was just published in April 2024. So these are the key takeaways. I reread this report yesterday just so that I was all ready. It's a 110-page report. Stimulating reading. If anybody is interested in this, I'm happy to share where I got it. So again, I come back to my theme of intention and consistency with engagement. I'm going to, in the next slide or two, I'm going to go a little deeper into what I mean by engagement. So the key takeaways: posting 1 to 3 times a week. But you want to make sure, again, that those posts resonate with you and your target audience. That's very important. There's nothing that says you have to post. I can tell you that I very, very rarely post. There's a couple reasons for that, which I'm not going to bore you on, but posting 1 to 3 times a week, using 3 to 5 hashtags. We'll talk about hashtags soon. Tagging from 1 to 15 accounts. This is more for those influencers and those content creators. But if that's something that you're interested in, these are very important takeaways from this report. Using up to 10 emojis. For some reason, LinkedIn does not like more than 10 emojis. And LinkedIn used to only, this is another really weird thing that LinkedIn liked, it only like 3 hashtags. So if you put, I'm sure you see some posts and people have like 50 hashtags. It would minimize that spread for those hashtags. Now it kind of lets anything go, but for an optimal post, 3 to 5 hashtags. And if you choose to tag in your post, right now, long form posts are the most popular, the ones that are the most powerful. And the reason for that is because it adds dwell time. Dwell time, which you saw on the last slide, is scroll, and I am going to pull up LinkedIn in a minute. When you scroll through LinkedIn and you scroll through that news feed, it's when you stop and you read it, and LinkedIn knows you're reading that, and it is measuring quality of that post, not the quantity. And so we know if we read like something that doesn't resonate very much, we'll just keep scrolling. But when something resonates, when you pause, it will start to feed you more information that's similar to that post that you were looking at. And that those are important when you're trying to draw more people to your profile page. Also responding to comments. So the goal is to generate conversation, and the more interaction, the better that post will do, the better, the more people who will start looking at your page. With that said, don't edit within 10 minutes of posting, and turn on creator mode for around 20% more reach. Again, that is if you are really looking to leverage LinkedIn for that B2B marketing, getting more inbound leads. And the one, well, I was going to say one more thing. It just slipped my mind. I will come back to that. Oh, because it wants you to respond within 12 hours and it's looking for your engagement on here. If you think about how LinkedIn is making their money, they're getting a lot of advertising dollars. And the more you're clicking on your computer, the more it's like, oh, they really like this, and the dwell time. And then it will favor your feed. Again, manipulating the algorithm with the goal of your profile coming up. All right.
Hey, Amanda, can I, before you go and engage, I'm sorry to interrupt. There were a couple more questions. One in particular
Sure.
about posting, if I could ask. Erica sent this in. She said, is there a difference between posting and reposting for the algorithm?
Yes. I mean, there is, I don't know how accurate this is. I'm not performing any of the research. I'm curating a lot of the research from a lot of different sources. There are theories that all of it has like a point system. So when you like a post, that's 1 point. When you comment on a post, that's 2 points. When you share the post, that's 3 points. When you share the post with your own feedback, that's 4 points. I haven't tested this on my own. I mean, I do post on behalf of people as a ghostwriter, and I can see the views and the impressions change, but I haven't like gone into the nitty-gritty and tried to figure out how many points did this. That's why I rely on all these other experts who are doing the research in the field. I will say, you know, the most powerful of generating is posting with consistency, but again, posting authentic, solid information, and then commenting. And actually, that leads right into here about the engagement. I
Perfect.
hope that
Thanks.
answered your question, Ashley. All
Thanks.
right, so you keep hearing me talk about engagement, and you know, for the people who don't use LinkedIn very often, which is great. I'm glad you're here so that you can learn how to use it and do it right without just scrolling with abandon. So engagement is when you are on the home screen and you're scrolling through. This isn't Facebook, so don't treat it like Facebook. It's when you react with the likes, when you comment, when you like or share or see more. The see more comes from when the posts are longer and there's a little see more at the bottom. When you click that, commenting is the most effective. So when you comment on a post, you're aiming for 5+ words, and you want to group those in 3 to 5 lines. You want there to be white space on there, and actively engaging with your connections content, you'll receive more engagement. And I have some tips here. So if someone's saying, oh, well, what should I write about? Well, you can add additional insight. You can summarize the key takeaways. You can ask questions, share your emotions, tag your network, add hashtags. So I'm going to, hopefully this is, is everybody on LinkedIn now? Melanie? Okay, so just for conversation's sake. Okay, so here's the home screen. Here's your news feed. And so you're going to notice right here, this top. So what gets in this top button is really a lot from the LinkedIn premium users, because they're paying a premium price. I think right now it's about $60 a month. If you want a more authentic feed, you want to click recent. And then when you're scrolling, let's say, and you're going to notice a lot of ads on LinkedIn. But we want to kind of break through that and we want to look at what's on here. So I'm going to stop on this right now. And this is very purposeful how I clicked on that see more button, very purposeful in the white space, very purposeful in using these silly emojis, and very purposeful with the hashtags, and very purposeful having a picture. That's a very good post. Now, how do you generate? She has only 3 people liked this. She may have posted it really well, but you really want to boost the engagement. So the liking and then commenting, reposting, it will say repost with your thoughts, repost, hypothetically reposting with your thoughts should earn her more points, right? If she's getting people to engage it. So you want to think about the person who's posting, they're getting those points and you're also getting those phantom algorithmic points, and then sending it to a friend. I've never seen actually a point for that. I mean, sometimes you would see that. But hopefully that puts a visual of what I was just talking about. So right now, LinkedIn's that I look at career coach pages, resume pages. However, you heard me mention a couple minutes ago that I don't post very often, but that's because of my work-life balance and everything. But also my algorithm is not very well curated. That means it's because I'm teaching so many different people in so many different fields how to use LinkedIn. It doesn't really know what I like. So I could be teaching somebody who's a biochemical engineer. I could be teaching someone who is an HR manager, and I could be teaching someone who's in medical device sales. It has no idea what I'm talking about. So this can be very, very messy on here, which brings me to my next slide. Okay. Any questions as I transition back to this?
Samson did submit one question regarding approaching strangers. Any suggestion on how I can approach a stranger for mentorship?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I do. What you want to do, and what was the person's name who said this? I'm sorry.
That was Samson.
Hi, Samson. Okay, I am happy to answer that. I will actually demonstrate this to you because I think everybody will appreciate how to do this. Let's pretend I really want to work at Google. Some people, I'm sure it's pretty popular. And there is somebody I want to get to know at Google. What I want to do is I want to follow Google, and then I want to click on people, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to find all the different people that I know who work at Google. And I'm going to try to see if I have people in common who can get me an introduction. So I would not advise for reaching out to a total stranger. I would do a lot of digging to see if you can find somebody in common and ask for an introduction. Now, that might take a while to find somebody in common, but that's where that networking comes in, right? So any of these people, right? So Betsy lives across the street from me. We have 39 connections in common. Like I could reach out to any of, that you're like moving through those networks to try to get an introduction to somebody who works there. So hopefully, Samson, that answers your question.
Yep. I already replied and said thanks. And this is a very similar question, Amanda, but I'll throw it out to you. It's probably the similar approach that you just shared. But Kumira asked, do you have any advice on how to build genuine relationships with recruiters and hiring managers?
Oh, that's a great question. Genuine relationships. I mean, I'm not sure, unless you're meeting those people in real life, if you can cultivate a real relationship, but you can use the same strategy to try to get introductions to those hiring managers and to those recruiters. There's one more step. Sorry if I'm making everybody dizzy by going back and forth. Okay, there is one more thing that you can do here. Let's pretend I want to be a senior copywriter. When I click on that job description that's available, I can, oh, this is like a terrible example. I'm trying to find an example where I might. Let's see here. So what often happens is, all right. So you can go through here. This is what I was looking for. So thank you for your patience, everybody. So what you can do is you can say, oh, here's the hiring team. I can go on to Justin's page. I can try to see if we have anybody, if we know anybody in common. Somebody was asking this earlier. Notice that I cannot click on his connections. He has that turned off. These are all sorts of things that you can turn off. But I can click and follow him. And look, I can click this more button. That's a little secret pathway. And it says connect. And oh, you know what? He has it set up that I can't do that. So most of the time it does it. But so he knows these tricks and he has worked around it. But now it's feeding other people who are similar to that, but I can follow him. I can try to get it. I can message him if I have premium. So when you're actively searching for a job, I would recommend paying for premium. Or what I would even more recommend would be getting the free trial of premium and then putting it in your calendar to cancel it in 30 days and kind of weigh the difference, do a little A/B testing. All right, hopefully that answered your question there. Okay. Moving along. Okay, engagement tips. I think I went over all of this, but what you will notice is that your profile views will surge the more you engage with intention and consistency. Again, that same theme keeps coming on and on, enough that I wanted to make sure that I repeated it multiple times because that's really the key to driving people to your site. This is a little more information of engaging through posting, but what I really want to get to right now is curating that newsfeed. So just like I was telling you, and I'm just going to use the example, and when you get this, if you want the slideshow, you can have it in detail there. Okay, so here's my newsfeed. It is important that you get all the decision makers to look to view your profile. Looking for a job as a senior copywriter, I want to make sure that people who are in the hiring positions at my target companies are able to see my newsfeed. And I want to amplify my professional brand, that I am this savant copywriter and I can get people to buy anything through my amazing copywriting. So I want to make sure, I can see you're laughing, Melanie. I want to make sure that my newsfeed allows me to do that. So here's my newsfeed. You can see I have it sorted as recent. And now I am going to put in hashtags. So what I'm doing is I'm curating this newsfeed so that it's relevant to me and it allows me to amplify my brand of being the best copywriter everywhere on earth. Okay, so here's copywriting. So you type in your hashtag and then you go to posts. And then I click see more. So now I'm helping this and I click copywriting. And I'm already following it. And then I click follow. So you can see almost 645,000 people are following it. What this is doing, I would suggest 15 to 20 hashtags. What this is doing is it's curating your newsfeed. It's increasing the likelihood that posts with those hashtags will show up in your newsfeed. And I stress increasing the likelihood. There's no guarantee. Okay. And the other things, let's say I want to work, somebody throw somewhere in here, somebody give me an example of where you would want, like a dream place you would want to work, company. And I'll use that as an example.
You
NASA.
said
Oh,
NASA. Okay.
Jesse, that's awesome. Okay, so let's go to NASA. And if you have multiple screens, you can just follow along and do it on your own. All right, so here's NASA. I'm going to go onto NASA. And simply by going onto this website, this is why it's very hard for me to have a very curated newsfeed, because I go onto all these different sites. But me going on here tells NASA, like, oh, Amanda Doblin likes us, right? I mean, in a very, however it's working on their end. It's reading that I came to the page. It's reading that I clicked follow. It's now I'm going to look at people. Notice that I always go to people first. I don't go to jobs. Again, that is because people hire people. Computers don't hire people. No one is going to look at your LinkedIn page or your resume for that matter and say, aha, you're hired. No, the goal is to differentiate yourself. The goal is to amplify your brand. The goal is to validate that you are who you say you are by intentional and consistent use. There are those words again. So I scroll down and I'm looking, do I know anybody? Oh, Nathan. Nathan and I both know Alexandra Renee. What I could do is message Alexandra. Oh, it looks like somebody, oh, it looks like she already wrote to me. But I could say, hi, Alexandra, and so on. And I could say, I see, you know, whatever that person's name was. He is a copywriter at NASA, but I am way better and I need to be hired. Obviously, don't say that. Ask for 15 minutes of somebody's time. Not everybody's going to answer, but when you ask for 15 minutes, it's a very easy ask. Some people will say no, some people will ignore you, and those awesome people will say yes. Okay, so what have I done here now? So I've curated this. I've added 15 to 20 hashtags. I've followed target companies like NASA, and I've connected to more people in those. And so now what's happening after a couple 20-minute sessions, this will be much more curated towards your interests. And when you like 3 to 4 posts, when you feel confident enough to comment and add value, thank for the post, ask a question, all that is doing, it's curating it, and it's going to feed more information to you organically. And that's the dwell time. And that's why it's so important. Again, at the beginning of our conversation, we talked about why we're using LinkedIn and using it with intention. And I had everybody think, how do I want to use it? What is my intention? And when you log in with that intention and you interact with that goal in mind every time, you're naturally going to boost your page views and your algorithm. And then this number, and don't worry about what the number starts at, but this number should go up. The more consistently you use it, you'll notice over 90 days what's going to come up. Now, if you have premium, you're going to see a graph and you will see a direct correlation of your consistent engagement. And then a day or two later, it will draw people to your page. Why does it matter who's coming to your page? Well, if you've been networking, you want to make sure that, you want to make sure, you know, oh, did that person come to my page? Was he or she interested? I just submitted my resume to so-and-so's friend at NASA. I wonder who got it. So it's just more validation. And again, don't get caught in the weeds. Don't worry what this number starts at. Just make sure that you're being consistent, you're being authentic to yourself, and you're engaging with that end goal in mind. Okay?
Perfect. Amanda, can I throw out a couple of a question or two to you?
Oh
Really
yeah,
quickly.
please, let's go.
Marianne threw in a question, completely understand the benefits and need to boost engagement through posting. However, I often struggle to think of and or find specific content to write on a post. What are some strategies or ideas to develop content to create more posts?
I think oh, you know what? I have it in a different, um, okay, that's a great question. Thank you, Marianne. You know, it doesn't have to be this big, huge production. One thing that I think is so important to note is that don't get caught in the weeds. You're thinking so hard about, oh my gosh, I don't know what to write. That's totally normal. But if you're being authentic to yourself and you're thinking about what my end goal is, if my end goal is to get a job, if my end goal is to build my network, if it's to amplify my brand, and so on, you can, the value add comment um, is thank you for this post. I found XYZ very interesting. If you're commenting on a post, if you want to post something, you can do a Google search of articles. Actually, you can set your feed on the Google, if you use Google, on the Google News for articles about NASA, right? If NASA is my end goal and I want to work there like Jesse, I would find articles about NASA. In fact, there were a bunch this week with um there was with Boeing and NASA this week, that you could share that and add, I was so excited to read that Boeing finally, after years of delay, launched and NASA's back. You know, add the hashtags. You can go so deep on this. You can find out how many followers NASA has, how many followers Boeing has, and those hashtags, and you can just dig in really deep on that, or you can just write it and see what happens. Do a lot of A/B testing. Hopefully that helped. I do
Great.
have on another slide, I guess I left it out on this presentation, of ideas of exact, like, here's some language you can use.
That's great. That's awesome. And can I
Mhm.
throw one more and then I'll let you keep going? This was
Yes,
more
for
a
sure.
generalized question, but I think legit and probably a question that a number of us have. Short
Hmm.
general question, but after 20 plus years in the field, in one field, I'm now in that field plus two new ones that are loosely related, including my own small business. So I'm looking for
Hmm.
advice on how to present yourself on LinkedIn when you wear different professional hats. And that came from
Oh, what was the name? I'm sorry.
Krista.
Krista. That is an awesome question. Okay, so my answer will be, it is very important to choose a lane. We cannot be everything to everybody. Um, choose you know, a lot of times I get people saying, "Oh, well, I need two LinkedIn profiles." You can't do that. You have to choose a lane. And so it sounds like you have 3 or 4 brand things going on with you. I'm just using myself as an example because I'm in a similar situation, Krista, is that I'm a freelance writer. I specialize in resume and LinkedIn writing. I do so many other things, but I can't put it all in there, right? So, what I've also noticed is that when you are applying for a job or you're honing your brand, people love specialists, right? I want a specialist in resume and LinkedIn writing. Great, I'm that person. Oh, by the way, I can also write brochures and newsletters, and I can ghostwrite for you, and internal communications and executive communications and all those different things. But it's very hard to put all of that on here. So, and also the way that Melanie introduced me so nicely earlier is that I'm a freelance writer who specializes in resume and LinkedIn. That is a very long answer to say, when there's an opening in a conversation like that, and someone says, "Oh, I see you do XYZ," and you're just like, "Oh, yeah, actually, I do. I have my own business and I do this and I do that." But you can also follow the lead of who's ever asking that. Your question, Krista, was how do I make LinkedIn work for me like that? You have to choose a lane, and then in your about section, you can talk about it. And these first 3 lines are the most important. So then you can kind of explain the rest of that there. The odds of anybody ever reading this entire thing are pretty slim. However, I think it's helpful for these reasons. And it also tells my story. Sometimes people are going to want to know more information. Sometimes they aren't and be skimmed. But I hope that answers your question, Krista. That's a great question.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Mhm. Any other questions? I know we have 8 minutes left. I'm going to show you the last slide and we'll go from there. So this will take like 2 minutes. Okay. So another question of what I always get, part of the algorithm is that your whole profile is filled out. I also like to point out that LinkedIn is a very right brain interaction. It's a picture of you. It's written in first person. You want to make sure, again, I'm going to go back to my theme of intention and consistency. Telling that same story across all platforms is amplifying your brand, and it's honing that thought leadership and that professionalness that you want to come across there. So this is a list of everything that you should do. So feel free to take a screenshot here, or I think Melanie was going to send some slides, but you want to make sure you have a banner. That's what's in the background, a professional photograph, a custom URL. Your headline needs to be, the way I describe this is aspirational, and it's what you want to be doing next. So even before I was officially a resume and LinkedIn expert, on my LinkedIn, I already was. And, I could do that. And then all of a sudden I named myself that. And whenever I interact, it's my name and my headline as a resume and LinkedIn expert. So that aspirational piece. The about section, I think I just showed you mine real briefly. Your first paragraph is the current role and responsibilities. Second paragraph, how you got there. Third paragraph, that right brain connection. So for whatever you're using it for, it's always nice to have that, like, oh, I play pickleball, or I play paddle tennis, or I'm an avid Cubs fan. Any of that commonality, those right brain EQ, emotional intelligent pieces go very far, that you are able to connect with people. Then you want to make sure all your employment history is there, your skills endorsement we talked about, your education, and then if you have awards, certifications. I've worked with a lot of professors, and they have all the publishing and all of that. So make sure that you fill it out. And then if you ask for recommendations, which is always very awkward, but it goes really far. And again, your goal is to validate who you say you are and to differentiate yourself from any competition. I take a lot of pride that I have more than 90 recommendations from people I've worked with, and that makes me feel great. And that's that client acquisition piece. So for anybody out there who's a freelancer, that's a really important piece as a freelancer. Okay, so time for questions. I'm going to go back to LinkedIn in case there's more questions on LinkedIn. And I know we only have 5 minutes, but that went really fast. Thank you, everybody.
Tons of great information,
Oh
Amanda.
my gosh.
Really,
Yeah.
this has been fantastic. Lots of thank yous and thumbs up already. Sherry
great.
threw out a question, which I thought was interesting and really current with a lot of the AI conversations and technologies these days. She said, I've heard of people generating content using ChatGPT and the like. What are your thoughts on this? And the second piece is, are there ways to make AI work for someone in this regard, or does that seem disingenuous?
Oh, that is a great question. And we could probably talk for hours about this. So I'm just going to tell a little anecdote to answer the question. So I have my degree in secondary education in English literature. When I was going to college a long time ago, there were all sorts of technology. Apple computers were just coming out, the precursor to PowerPoint, even like overhead projectors was technology. Then it was very important that you only use technology as a tool. 30 plus years later, I am still a firm believer in any type of education, in any type of interacting, that technology is a tool. So if you're using ChatGPT to brainstorm, somebody asked that question earlier, it's like, I don't know what to say. You can ask ChatGPT of like, I just read this great article. What is a theme about this? What are some interesting things? And then take that and put it in your own voice. Or it could make you think of something else. there. So hopefully, Sherry, that answers your question, is that I would never ask Chat GPT a question and then copy and paste it and put it on there. I would use it as a brainstorming tool. It's one more tool in your repertoire of everything that's at your fingertips. But again, at the end of the day, it's important, and you're going to hear me say this again, that you're authentic to yourself, that you're intentional, and you're consistent in your messaging.
That's awesome. That's great. Another question about sort of using LinkedIn for targeting. It says, would you consider LinkedIn being more useful for targeting larger businesses, i.e. corporations, or can it also be effective in targeting smaller/local businesses?
All of the above. I mean, you're definitely going to have all the Fortune 50, 500, 1000 companies on there. It is a way to shrink that population a little bit. Not all small businesses are going to be on there. So I would use it, all of the above. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, how many billions of people are on LinkedIn? And that's why you're there, is to network and meet those people.
That's great. That's awesome. Allison threw out another question as well. Do you have any tips for overcoming imposter syndrome? Wondering if anyone will care what you have to say when posting, commenting, and engaging.
Allison, you are not alone with the imposter syndrome. I think that is a detriment to so many people it's amazing, some of these majorly accomplished women and men who've accomplished so much and come to me, and we're working on LinkedIn, or we're working on a resume, or without even doing internal and external communications. That's a real thing. Are there tips to overcome? I'm going to go back to my theme of, you're not alone in having imposter syndrome. I mean, similarly to how I told you when I created my headline that you see up at the top, resume and LinkedIn writer positioning clients for success through authentic representation. When I did this, I maybe wrote like 5 resumes at that point, but I had been studying LinkedIn, and I think I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to put this on there, and that's my aspirational goal. And then that, just working to make that happen, and really believing and studying and knowing, you know what, I am this. I figured it out. I'm doing it. And we're all practicing. And most importantly, we are all human, and we all have some sense of doubt. So you're not alone. Hopefully that helps, Allison.
That's perfect. Amanda, we are at time, my friend. Any
Thank
last
you.
parting words you want to share with folks before we wrap up?
Well, I'm sure everybody could probably chime in and tell me what I will say. To get started, the first things that I would do. So if people want those, okay, I want to get started. The first thing that you want to do is conduct like an audit, and that's on one of my slides there. Do a LinkedIn audit. So go through that list that I have on there and see, is everything, here's my profile. Do I have everything filled out? That's number one, do an audit. Number two, number two, or you could swap it. You should, identify really why you're using LinkedIn. What is your intention, and always hold true to that. So those are probably done simultaneously, and then fix everything on there. And then number 3, those other steps that I just mentioned, identify target companies or target people you want to connect with, and start curating that newsfeed. 20 minutes a day will really do that. And then you're increasing the likelihood that the people who you want to see your profile, the increase of seeing that. And then they see your brand, right? It's your picture, your name, and your brand. Those would be the first steps that I would do. And always, always with intention and consistency and authenticity.
That's wonderful. Absolutely perfect. Amanda, thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for joining and sticking with us. I know this went by really, really fast.
Really fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a reminder, we will share a recording of this workshop at the beginning of next week. I will go ahead and share slides. All right with you, Amanda? Yes. I will share a PDF version of the slides with everybody tomorrow with a follow-up message. Again, thanks again, and wishing everybody a good rest of your evening. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melanie. But it was such a privilege, and happy 5th year anniversary, the next group.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Much appreciated. Take care.
Thank you.
I'll just stay on for a few minutes for everybody.
Yes, I will too, in case.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll just go ahead and stop the recording now.